Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Talking About Birds, the only Cardinal podcast that, like the Cardinals, shouldn't have even bothered. My name's Nate Heininger, and I am joined, as always, this week by my co-host, Ben Samorka.
Little rope-a-dope intro there. Threw me for a loop.
And this week we are talking about the wildly disappointing wild card series. We're going to look back at some of our early season predictions, and we're going to catch up with the rest of the playoffs. If you have an idea for the opening joke, tweet us at Talk About Birds. Ben,
Where should I start my grievances, Nate?
We've got a whole. We're gonna air some grievances today, and we're also gonna try to bring a level-headed approach. We've had a couple days to decompress, to think about it, and I think we want to try to, bring what we always try to do, which is give a stupid but maybe considered opinion to what happened in those two games.
You know what I learned about myself this postseason, Nate?
What's that?
My coping mechanism is lots of food and lots of craft lager. I feel like I'm bloated and swollen and disgusting. But that's really how all I've been up to the past, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 days, whatever.
Yeah. Well, I was at game 2, and that coping mechanism was active for me. At that game, we'll talk about it in a little bit more, but I spent more money on concessions than I think I ever have at a game. But hey, before we get into that, we kind of left the last episode on a cliffhanger. We decided to try to bring the conclusion to our game that we call Draft Day Heroes and Hatchlings Edition. I'm going to get our little song going here, just in the background while you and I chat. Well, I don't know, maybe it's a little too loud, so we'll let it go for a second.
I mean, the people like it, right?
Yeah, it's good. All right, we'll fade it out. So, but if you remember, there was one game left in the season, and it actually had started when we were recording last week. And I had started doing the calculations thinking, there's no way. We've got 6 players. We're adding up all their F4. There's no way it would actually come down to the final game of the season. But it did, in fact. So,
I have to, when you're doing this, I imagine you are playing with an abacus and you're kind of in a dark room and you're shoving your glasses up your nose.
Yeah.
Not up your nose, but up your bridge.
Yeah, I'm doing a lot of correcting of where my glasses are positioned on my face. Yeah. I've got I've got a stick going into sand. I'm doing calculations in the sand and my abacus. You know how I do math. And so if somehow this is your first episode listening, we did a competition at the beginning of the season. We each had to draft 6 players, 3 from the 40-man, 3 off the 40-man. And we were going to see who had the most F4 at the end of the year. And last episode, we went for the exciting conclusion, and it turned out that I was winning 13 F4 to 12.9 F4. And we still had multiple players in play, including Johan Oviedo, who Ben had drafted, who was starting for the Pirates, and Liberator, who I had drafted, who was starting for the Cardinals. So
what are the chances that 2 of our starters off the 40-man would be playing each other in game 162 of the season? That is just absolutely insane.
Yeah, it's wild. So, we thought we would let that play out when we come back in this episode. And it's so ridiculous that I had to start off this episode with it, because I know people out there have just been in a catatonic state, just waiting for the results of this. So I'm going to run down. I'm not going to run down. Well, I'll say who everyone drafted, and then I'll say what the differences were. So Ben had Paul Goldschmidt, Tyler O'Neill, Harrison Bader, Brendan Donovan, Johan Oviedo, and Alec Burleson. And then I had Nolan Arenado, Dylan Carlson, Adam Wainwright, Nolan Gorman, Juan Yepez, and Matt Liberatore. And again, I was up by 0.1 F4. And that's like Fangraphs doesn't go to the 10th or to the 100th decimal, right? It just goes to point like 1, 0.2, 0.3, and so on. So
sure.
I don't know which way. I assume it rounds up or down to the nearest. But anyway, so here are the differences from the outcome of that game. Johanna Oviedo for you increased his overall F4 because he had a fine, if not, slightly below average start, but it was fine. He increased his F4 by 0.1.
Let's go, Johan.
Nolan Arenado increased his F4 by 0.1.
Oh no.
And Juan Yepez lowered his F4 by 0.1. So Ben, we tied.
Oh my God. What the hell?
So your 6 players combined equaled 13 F4, and my 6 players combined equaled 13 F4.
Oh my God.
I know, it's wild. So I ended up with 2 people at a straight 0, Juan Yepez and Matt Liberatore. And then Gorman ended at 0.5. And then obviously Arenado, Carlson, and Wainwright did pretty well for me.
Yeah.
You had sort of the best down ballot pick with Brendan Donovan. But you also got negative 0.3 from Burleson, and you only got 1.3 from Tyler O'Neill. And so it's
I have a proposal.
Okay.
So I think first off, there's no ties in baseball, so we can't really let this sit. I don't think that we can let this sit. And I remember that we put something on this competition, although I'm struggling to remember what it is. And now that I say that out loud, I'm also remembering that I owe you a ribeye steak for an earlier competition, which I'm good for.
I intend to collect.
And I will
check
pay.
My mailbox every day.
I'm going to just mail you a drawing. Like a really poorly drawn steak.
Oh, I'll take a bite.
I think, and I don't think we should do this right now. I think we should get this ready for next week's episode. I think we should take it to Baseball Reference War and total those out and see, because there's going to be a difference. I don't know exactly how it is, but they calculate differently. I say we do that. There's no way it's going to be tied on both systems.
Yeah.
What say you?
I was going to propose that the winner is whoever picked the person with the highest overall F4, which of course would then be me, having selected Nolan Arenado.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, okay. Let's do it. We'll take this. We'll go to our secondary source. I think you and I both prefer F4, but I like Baseball Reference. It's a good site. So they calculate things a little bit differently. So
I mean, Nate, we're in unprecedented waters right now. No one has ever been in a situation like we're in. So I think we have to pull out all this stuff.
The other alternatively, we just roll this over to 2023.
Oh, wow.
Exact same selections.
All right.
No, I think we'll do the same challenge next year with, we'll redo it. But because I don't think you should keep Johan Oviedo and Harrison Bader. So we just track them on that other team.
That would be odd. Yeah. Although Harrison's probably going to have a great year next year.
I know the Yankees. It's so funny. I have to there was so much hate for that. And now he hits a bomb in the first round of the playoffs and plays good defense. And everyone's like, we love you, which is good. We love Bader and we knew.
We called that from a mile away. Like New York is going to Bader might be the most popular player outside of Aaron Judge. Well, we'll see if Judge leaves, I guess, but he might be the most popular player on that team, like midsummer tomorrow, next year.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's very likely. So, yeah, let's wrap that up. And I cannot believe that,
That is absolutely insane. Yes, I
yeah,
can't. Wow.
6 different players all with the all to the same, and it came down to the final
Yeah.
day, and I
Mhm.
had you, and then, I
Yeah.
didn't even look at whatever Yepez's box score was, but it cost him a point of,
Yeah.
point 1 F4.
Well, he
So
played in the outfield that, or did he play? No, he was playing first base in that game, right?
yeah.
That
So,
alone might have, if he didn't get a hit, that alone probably just lowered him because of the defensive
yeah.
value of first base.
I really needed Oviedo to get lit up, and,
Yeah.
instead Liberator kinda did, and
Yeah.
so, yep.
Yeah, you know
Alright.
what? Really quick though, I know this is like way old news at this point. How about Libby hitting like 96, 97 in that start? Like,
Yeah.
we hadn't seen that before, at least in the bigs. That was kind of exciting.
I know his year has been less than what we were all hoping, but I'm still very hyped on Liberator. I mean, I think it was a strange year, a strange usage pattern for him. Just
Yeah.
like he basically had a couple starts to like establish himself, and then after that, it was just in the shuffle of next man up. So I think we'll talk a little bit about, we have a whole off season to talk about this sort of stuff, but I'm hopeful that they still see him as a future part of the rotation because I think there's still enough there. I'm not ready to give up. Uh, but
Yeah, I mean the
yeah,
stuff is clearly there. You just got to figure it out
yeah,
and strike out big league hitters.
yeah. So, all right, let's do it. Let's talk about the wild card series. You know, the end to a truly magical season. I've said this a couple times now. I think this was the most enjoyable regular season of my adult life of Cardinal fandom. Like, overall, when you take in all the factors, the Pujols, Yachty, Wayno storylines,
Yeah.
the most valuable two of Arenado and Goldy, and then all the young guys coming in, and it's just so much fun. There have obviously been good seasons in the past, but just narratively and successfully, like this was one of the most fun. So what a disappointing way to end. But what I try to, help myself with is that like it was always most likely going to end this way. The Cardinals were always it was most likely they were going to get eliminated from the playoffs. So like the outcome isn't what was unexpected. I think we would have enjoyed a little bit better of a showing and had at least one win in this
Yeah.
postseason, but also a 3-game series is only slightly less fluky than a 1-game series, and we saw that in this
Right.
series. I mean, game 1, which we're about to talk about, I mean, that 6th inning was or the 6th, that 9th inning was one of the flukiest things I've seen in a long time. Just so many bullshit things that came together at exactly the right time from the put up so many and I don't well, I'm rambling now. So
Well, that's the inherent problem with the new format is you can go on, win your division, you play arguably the worst team in the playoffs. Maybe other than the Guardians might be worse, like true talent level than the Phillies. You go
yeah,
play the National League's worst team in the playoffs, and the flukiest ninth inning I can remember, especially in a high leverage situation, is the thing that essentially decides your season. I mean, they were talking about it on the broadcast, and I'm not going to check these numbers because I'm sure that they're somewhat right. It makes sense in a 3-game series. But if you win game one, 70% chance that you lose the rest of the games, or sorry, that you win that series in a 3-game
right.
series. So the fact that the season pretty much came down to that, I mean,
Yeah, and I mean,
it's
it beyond the 9th inning too, Arenado's hit that he thought was gone had an 840
yeah,
expected batting average, and then I think it was
oh
Segura's
yeah,
two-run single that, put the Phillies ahead, had a 140 expected batting average. Now, there's a deeper discussion in that particular hit because of where the infield was situated. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But even still, like a 140 expected batting
yeah,
average going in the direction of the Phillies, and an 840 or whatever going in the direction of the Phillies also. Like that's all it takes to swing a game,
yeah.
and then it is what it is. Game 2 played way more normal. But
Yeah.
yeah, I mean,
Well, I would also, and I think we should talk about the good stuff too. But I think the other aspect, and it's right in line with what you're saying, is the fact that the three game series does favor the less deep team because you're seeing less of that team. A
right.
team with more depth is going to do better in a short burst. That's just how it is. So it is kind of a punishment for if two teams are playing a 3 game series, it is an advantage for the worst team because they can fluke out and exactly what we saw happen. But yeah, you want to talk game one a little bit? I think we should hit the good stuff first.
Yeah, I mean, we were a little surprised to see Quintana be game one, although we both knew he was going to be one of the starters. So it's not really a
Yeah.
huge difference between game one and game two, but I kind of expected almost like the honorific of Michaelis being the game one starter. And it's kind of an indictment of your team's pitching staff if your game one starter in the playoffs is the guy you acquired 2 months before. But either way, like he looked great. It was a
Well,
great start.
I think that you're right. Like where was this guy? This guy probably should have been on your team earlier. Like if that's what you mean by indictment. But we talked about it the week before the playoffs. Like for the past 2 months almost, he had been one of the best pitchers in baseball, definitely in the
Yeah.
National League. And he's not striking guys out, but he had a sub 1 ERA over 40 plus innings. Like
Yeah.
it
I
makes sense for
yeah.
sure.
What I mean to say is so he absolutely earned it.
Yeah. Yes.
But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
it's uh usually your game one starter still, even if there's someone who's crushing it like that, is like whoever is the ace of your staff, that is like that's why I expected Michaelis, the guy who's been there all year. He's been
Yeah.
crushing for most of the year, but that's all narrative stuff, so whatever. But
Well,
I mean, he looked good.
Quintana. Oh, sorry. Yeah, Quintana went 5 1/3, gave up 2 hits, 1 walk, 3 strikeouts. Was basically, I mean, that's damn near perfect. Obviously, not exactly perfect, but as good as you can ask for. And I think that first kind of inflection point is removing him. He comes up or sorry, he faced Schwarber to end his outing in the sixth. And with Hoskins and Real Muto coming up, Ollie made the choice to have Mr. Jordan Hicks come in. And Hicks came in and, got his guys out. He was a little wild, but as we've said all year, when you throw 99 to 102, it kind of paves over a lot of things. So it didn't really matter. What did you think of that initial move of taking Quintana out at that time?
I
And,
thought
and
it
I guess
was
I'll add in the fact of the
uh,
third time through the order and all that.
yeah. I did think it was a little bit early, but I was okay in the moment and remain being okay with it because of the type of team that they are, where like they generally beat you with the home run, which is not what we saw in this series. But still, like that's the thing you're guarding against. And Quintana still looks sharp, but Real Muto, Hoskins, and then Castellanos, two batters after that, like you can see a world where it starts to get out of hand very quickly, or the lead is gone in one swing of the bat. And bringing in a new look, a guy who is very much the opposite of what Quintana does, I
Yeah.
thought made sense and it worked. Now, did it did the result end up taxing the bullpen in a way that harmed you later? Yeah, I guess yes, but would but you no one was going to predict what happened to Helsley, because if what happens to
Right.
Helsley on a physical level doesn't happen, he looked like the Helsley we've known all season, and I was totally fine with the 5-out save for Helsley. And I know I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but like that was a reasonable game plan to me. Bridge to Gallegos slash Helsley in the eighth and the ninth, and let it rock. I mean, let it rip. That's what they've done all year, and it's worked the vast majority of the time. And it was working until something happened with Helsley's hand. So I don't know. I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the game plan was fine, and I think like just to go on a little mini rant, like you were talking about that Gene Segura hit, and it's a ball that I think you said it's got a 140 expected batting average, and you are hitting it in the direction of what I would argue, I think fairly easily the best defensive second baseman in baseball, Tommy Edman, a guy who's super rangy, super sure-handed, and he was in a weird position. The infield was pulled in, which you could argue about. That was a whole other thing. But you cannot predict that your closer, who is having one of the best seasons a Cardinals closer has had in the past 20 or 30 years, that his middle finger is going to go numb. I would say the part that I think is fair to question is when you have double barrel action going in the bullpen. You have Palante, and you have Jack Flaherty. Flaherty.
Jack Flaherty.
Have we done that stupid bit yet?
No.
That's solid
Why
right there.
would
That's
we
good
have?
talking about birds.
Why would we have ever done that before? But I'm all in on it now. Jack
Yeah,
Flaherty.
that's our level humor. My thought, like, I guess the way I look at that situation, and Ali came out and he explained why he went to Palante. Palante's a big ground ball guy. Gene Segura is a big ground ball guy. I think he said some type of stat how there was a 70% expected ground ball there. The Cardinals have the best defensive infield in baseball. Makes sense. I get that. I think my flavor, my cup of tea would have been to go for Jack, to go for the strikeout. With the bases loaded, I just feel more comfortable with that. But like I said, he brought in Palante. He made his choice, and obviously was playing numbers he thought were going to work. We know, we kind of talked about it all year. Palante is just not going to be the guy to get the strikeout. And I think in that situation, you have Jack Flaherty in the bullpen. He's warming up. You're not like, we didn't use Jack Flaherty, which arguably is our best pitcher in the 2-game series, and that's really disappointing to me. When you have him warming up in the bullpen, that signifies to me he's not starting game 3, or it's very unlikely that he's starting game 3. So put him out there. Maybe he would have been wild. Maybe he would have walked a guy in. Maybe it didn't matter. But like I said, the flavor of ice cream that I would have right there would be Flaherty and go for the K,
Yeah.
because
Uh,
you get the K in that situation on Gene Segura, who isn't a world beater by any means. He's a high
yeah.
contact guy. But then, any out and the game's over. You pop up, line out, strikeout, whatever after
Right.
that point. It doesn't really
No,
matter. But the K right
name
there is huge.
all the different types of outs that he could. You said line out. You said pop out. You've got.
I'm saying the pressure is off the
I
defense at that point, to a degree, of course.
Yeah. So I hear you, and I think that is the one. I think there were two things that were worth at least like revisiting, questioning a little bit, which is that one,
Yeah.
and then like I think the one thing that really stood out to me is like the more like mistake is and this again may have had no impact, but I think Helsley went one too many batters also. I think
Yeah.
it was obvious that he was falling apart, that there was something going on. And I know you need a little bit of time to get your guys warmed up, but they did a whole show of having coming out and Helsley, throwing extra pitches, and they were able to like basically prove that he's leaving because of injury. And then that by the rules lets whoever you're bringing in throw as many pitches as they want. And
Right.
so like I get it's Helsley. At any point he could burn someone or he could get a ground ball, but it like I was sitting there like he needs to be out of this game now. And then they let him go one more batter and he hit him. And it's like that should have never happened. Like it's too high stakes to let him keep pitching at that point. However, you got to delay, go out and decide to scream at the umpire and just buy like the extra minute that whoever's going to need. Like that one stood out to me. I think that's a fair criticism of Marmol. The Palante Flaherty thing, like, I don't know, because I agree with you. Like, we're really just picking flavors, but like, I'll say the flavor that he picked, which is go for the ground ball, it worked. Palante got 3 ground balls in a row, and they all were just like Edman misses it. Arenado misses it. Like, it's, what are you supposed to do with that? The whole team this year has been ground balls and defense, and it failed us.
It did feel like the team when Helsley was showing, his armor was wearing thin or whatever you want to call it. It did seem like the team lost focus in a weird way. Like Nolan missing that ball. Obviously, Nolan makes errors. He's not infallible, but that was a weird one for me. That stuck out.
Yeah.
I also like to go back to the Helsley decision aspect of it. Like I. And I'm not trying to like start a conspiracy theory or anything like that. But if Helsley's middle finger is going numb and he can't feel it, don't you think that he'd be like, "Hey, Ollie, come out here right now. I can't feel my middle finger when I'm throwing the ball." That seems massively important. I know these guys are competitors. I know, they're psycho competitors and they want to be out there in the big moment and all that kind of stuff. But not being able to feel a very, very important finger on your pitching hand seems like you would wave for Mad Dog or somebody to come out, like, or
Yeah.
talk to Yachty, or I mean anything. Like, obviously we
Ah,
don't really know. So
yeah.
I guess the conspiracy theory aspect to that is he injured? Was it just he lost it? Because he
And
was
they're
still throwing 100. Like,
yeah, I
I
don't
just thought that was bizarre.
I don't the thing about Marmol that we've really loved this year, and is that he's been incredibly candid about what happened and why it happened. And I'd be super surprised if they would come up with this whole thing in order to like protect Helsley. I think it's way more likely that Helsley is he was in a incredibly tense spot, and maybe he was feeling something but thought he could like still get away with it because he'd gotten 3 outs in a row without much of a problem, and he'd been doing it all year. And these maniac competitors like don't ever want to show weakness in any moment, and he just wanted to be out there. That'd be my guess before
Yeah.
some sort, before anything else. Unless it was they had to do it at that last minute in order to get Palante or Flaherty a little bit more time to warm up, and it was all a
It,
show. But yeah.
I respect the competitive psychosis that these guys like kind of live in on a day-to-day basis. It just seems crazy to me that you would be feeling that and and then seeing the results therefrom that injury or that lack of feeling, and you're like, "Nah, dog, I got this." That
Yeah.
like, and again, maybe that's just a gear that like I'm not a major league athlete, like I just don't get, which is
What?
totally fair. But yeah,
I mean, you look the
yeah, I
part.
agree. I
Um,
do. Thank you. I got like
uh,
David Wells vibes going on over
yeah,
here.
yeah, like 10 years retired, CC Sabathia style. Um,
Hey, he looks better than he did when he played. Thank
that's
you.
true.
I'll take that.
Let me take it back. 10 years retired, Benji Molina.
Hey, he looks good. I'll take that too.
No, I'm just
He's
digging
got a
myself
nice
a
head of
deeper
hair, good
hole.
beard.
Yeah, yeah, you have neither of those. All right, so let's flip it back on the positive. What about that Juan Yepez home run? I mean, was that not one of the most exciting things you've had in
Man,
a playoff game? Like it was shades of Matt Adams, who threw out the pitch in game 2,
yeah,
which was fun, but it was all for naught.
yeah.
So
The home run was huge. The
yeah,
bat flip was great.
good bat flip. Yeah. Um. Okay. Well, Hakuna Matata. It's in the past. Let's talk about game 2.
All right, let's talk about game 2, which I guess was a more normal baseball game. Something that didn't end in two of the most fluky things happening to crumple the Cardinals. Um, I guess I'll start on a positive note. Miles looked pretty good. Um, not spectacular, not as good as Jose Quintana. So the game one starter was well chosen, I suppose. But he looked good, I thought.
Yeah. So I was fortunate enough to be at this game. I got a free ticket. I wasn't gonna go.
Oh, you didn't tell me it was a free ticket.
Yeah. I wasn't gonna go. I was gonna watch it at home. I had like a super full day leading up to the game, but someone offered me a ticket. And I mean, come on.
Hey, click it or ticket, am I right?
I, I don't think that really makes a lot of sense in this context, but I chose ticket over click it in that moment, I suppose. And and
no, wait, it does make sense. Like you click
yeah,
the
back
things
into it.
online. Yeah, you
Okay, yeah.
click
No, I'm
to
all right.
watch the game.
I'm back on board. So instead of clicking it online to watch it, I decided to ticket and go to the game.
That was good.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. So I've never like purposefully gone to a baseball game by myself. And I went to the home opener this year, and I went with my parents, and I went with my brother, sister-in-law, and their very young child. And if you remember, home opener was like 50 degrees. It was super cold. And so my parents are old, and my brother has a young child. So they all basically left early. And I ended up at home opener by myself.
Yeah.
And then
Your
I
family
went,
abandoned you.
yeah, of course. And then I went to what turns out to be the last game of the season, and I was
Wow.
also alone in the stadium when the game ended. So it's been an interesting year. I was very glad to be there. You know, I knew like there's a legitimate chance that this is actually the last game at Busch for Albert Pujols and Yadier
Yeah.
Molina. So I've got some really bad pictures on my phone of their final at bats, of which they both had hits in their
Yeah.
last at bats, which is fun. And I had a good time at the game. My seats were not particularly exciting seats. What I actually ended up doing is, being a man of the people, and I kind of just went to different standing room only spots like throughout the stadium and just watched from like different angles, and just kind of enjoyed the stadium and the crowd, which was fun. I had nachos earlier in the day, so this is my gluttonous day. I had nachos earlier in the day, so I chose not to get nachos at the ballpark, so I got a hot dog. And then later I was feeling my feelings, so I got a pretzel and some cheese. and
Smart.
I got just too many of the largest Budweisers that they sell. And I had a good time. It was very bittersweet. But I will say, like, from my angle, it was hard for me to really get a beat on Michaelis, like at the level that you and I, usually talk about these things. But what stood out to me is that in our episode last week, we were like, you can't let Harper beat you. And of course,
Yeah.
he, has a big home run.
I mean, big. Hey, he
Yeah.
destroyed that baseball.
Yeah. I put this on Twitter, but I'll say I did. One of the best parts of the night was that I was waiting in line to get in. It was a pretty big line, and I this guy in front of me, he leaned over to this guy next to him. He said, "Hey, do you know what time the Cubs play today?" And they both had a very big laugh. I was like,
That is good.
"Yeah, yes." Even at our, even in these moments, we can still bash the Cubs. So
That's funnier than anything that's ever been said on this podcast. Full stop.
yeah, that's why I took it, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Well, I gotta say that on the podcast because
That's mine
actually
now. I'm gonna take
that's
that.
mine
That's
now."
mine.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
they don't know I have a Cardinal podcast. Uh,
Fools.
fools! Everyone here are fools. Um, I was definitely, shoving people out of the way, saying, "I
Sure.
have a podcast."
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like you said, this game was a lot more straight up and down. We've unfortunately, while the Cardinals have a very good offense or had one this year, like it has very much been like boom or bust, right? We've
Yeah.
seen the 14 game inning or the 14 run games followed by a string of 1 or 0 run games. And that was always kind of the risk of this team, which was so Arenado and Goldschmidt focused, that if those two don't do anything, it becomes really difficult for the team to win games.
Yeah.
And that's real essentially what happened this game. Obviously they should have won game one, and we already talked about that, but still only 2 runs in that game. Like, it's going to be hard to win. And then 0 runs in this game. Like, Nola was great,
Yeah.
and they
No,
they
well,
like,
I
what
would
more do you
even push
do?
on that. Like Nola was good. I don't think I would even feel comfortable saying he's great because I've watched I guess I'll divulge this. He was on my fantasy team. I watched a lot of Nola starts this year, and when he's really going, we talked about it the other week. It's really all about that two seamer, and then you mix in the really really special breaking balls that he has. But that two seamer wasn't really going. He was getting guys out. I mean, he was getting guys out in the middle of the zone, and they just weren't swinging.
Yeah.
So I like maybe he was just being extra tricky and unpredictable, and that is value add. Like clearly that's a great way to pitch, is being unpredictable. But the Cardinals were just taking pitches or missing pitches in Goldschmidt's case down the middle. I would
Yeah.
not
Well,
say it was a classic Nola dominating start where he is picking at the corners with the two seamer and then dropping the hammer curveball on you. It just wasn't there.
yeah, we saw that in the first inning, right? Newbar leads off the game with a double. It was incredibly exciting. He's, you know, super jacked up about it. And then was Goldschmidt. I mean, that was basically a strikeout like down the middle, right? Like just
Yeah.
not even swinging, and I mean, it was an unfortunate continuation of really like the goalie that we've seen for the last month of the season, and he's still going to win the MVP. I think it's pretty much a lock, but
Yeah.
you know, it
It it
was yeah,
It really felt like it was kind of the same Goldschmidt that we had for the 6 weeks prior. He just wanted it so bad because typically he was not having great at bats, and it just wasn't the way that it was for the first 5 months of the season almost. But in this game, we saw him taking swings where he was like falling over after the swing, which is just not what Goldschmidt does. Like
right.
he is always balanced. He always has a swing. He might not be getting the results that he wants, but he always is right there. And seeing him swing at a so-so breaking ball that's basically down the middle and then almost falling forward, as soon as you see that, and I'm sure the pitchers on the Phillies were like, this,
Yeah,
all the
carve
respect
it.
in the world to Goldschmidt. He can still take you out. He's still Paul Goldschmidt. He is one of the best hitters of his generation. But
But
that's how baseball go. When your timing is off, when your swing isn't there, there's not much else you can do. You are, you know, you got to
yeah,
find it. And I guess, I'll add to the point, like, I have no problem with Ali keeping him in the lineup at that spot and all that stuff, because Goldschmidt is one of those guys who can then click in the next at bat. It just never came.
yeah, I agree. And for Arenado's case, he was great. He made hard contact in both games. It was just that fluky element. Like I don't think there was much different that he could have done at the plate. Like above and beyond what he already did. But when you talk about position in the lineup, we spent a lot of time talking about pitching decisions
Yeah.
from Ali Marmol. What really stood out to me, and I don't think has been talked about as much, is Pujols in the two hole.
Yes.
Pujols in the two hole against two like dominant righties, and Pujols has not been in that two spot like really all season. And I think lineup construction is often an overplayed thing, but I was still very surprised that like that is not what got us here. That is not what we'd been seeing Pujols' use case against righties. It was really surprising to me that they had Pujols batting two over, you know, Donovan basically, or well, we had predicted a new bar Donovan, 1-2, and they
Yeah.
go with Pujols, which is definitely like a riding the hot hand decision, but we hadn't really been seeing a lot of him in that spot, so I thought that was pretty surprising as well.
And I'm actually glad I wanted to talk about this, because I think like, go with who brought you here. And we talked all season long about how the way that the Cardinals offense works is you have two guys in front of the bashers that get on base, that put pressure on the defense, that clog up the bases. And then the guys, Goldy and Arenado and whoever's behind them, are in great RBI positions. And yeah, for them to go away from that was very, very confusing. I think we were talking about it, or at least I know I expressed that I didn't think that Pujols should be starting against Zach Wheeler, period, even though he is the hot hand, even though he had a really, really great second half. That guy, Zach Wheeler, whose average fastball is like 97, 98, is just not the guy that Albert is going to hit. He did not. I would have much
Yeah.
rather have seen Juan Yepez. Would have much rather seen really anybody. I mean, Corey Dickerson even got a knock off of him, and he did start.
Yeah.
But I thought that made a lot of sense. I did think the start of Nola and Pujols lined up a little bit more because we've talked about it all season. Finesse is a little bit more what Pujols is feasted on this year, and finesse in today's game is you throw only 94 with movement. But
Right, right.
but still something that we've seen Pujols be able to handle. But I think really what you said is the most interesting point. Why are we not starting it off with our two lefties, Donovan and Newtbar? They are working the count. I mean, we talked about it ad nauseum on the last episode. The goal of the Cardinals should be to wear out these. I think we said some stupid bit about five
We'll
thousand
give them
dollars
five.
for
No, we said $5. We'll give
$5.
them,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
Pujols should be giving them $5,000. Me
yeah,
$5. But
yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
like take those pitches, work those counts. And I love Albert, and he had an amazing second half, but he is not taking pitches. He is not working counts. He is looking for his pitch and trying to destroy it, which is great in the fifth spot or the sixth spot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would love, and maybe Ali has answered this question somewhere, but I would love to hear the answer myself. Why change the formula when the chips are down, when it's all there for these two games?
Yeah.
A very bizarre move, I thought.
Yeah, and the success that Pujols has had in the second half against righties has mostly we had the easiest schedule in baseball in the second
Right.
half, so it was like, yeah, he was beating up on Mitch Keller or whatever, but like it's not the same as Zach Wheeler. So that was, yeah. So
Um,
anyway, game
well,
two. Yeah.
one other thing I want to pick on for game two, and I actually I have an opinion on this. I want to hear your opinion, but giving Carlson the game off and putting Yepez out in right field. What are your thoughts on that?
I was surprised by that too, because it definitely felt like almost like a reward. Like, he hit the home run yesterday.
Yeah.
Let's get him out there now. I guess I didn't really think it was a bad choice. I mean, as it turned out, it didn't really do anything. My preference would always be to have Carlson out there. I think he's the more dynamic player, and his defense in center field is going to be, uh, possibly massive in any game. So I would have definitely preferred to go with Carlson out there over Yepez, but it didn't really, it was not something that made me like really feel a lot of like negative feelings about it. I mean, do you
There
feel differently?
I actually do feel differently, and I think it's a pretty big downgrade because when you're taking out Dylan Carlson, you are subtracting defensive value from center field and from right field.
Right.
Because Newt is out of position. I don't think Newt is a great defensive center fielder. I think he's a fine and dandy right fielder and left fielder, but Carlson is clearly the best center fielder. I would have personally chosen to go defense over the slight potential offensive upgrade there. And I do think that there was a Brandon Marsh double in against Montgomery that Yepez kind of, I mean, Newt ran, it had to be 120 feet to go to that ball, and he pulled up short. And Yepez really didn't take a good route. I'm not saying it would have been caught, and really it probably wouldn't have mattered because the Cardinals didn't score a damn run anyways. So they
Right.
could have had just one run and still won the game. But that situation, and like I said, I would just in a game that matters like that, I want my best center fielder defensively out there. I want
Yeah.
my best shortstop out there. I want my best catcher out there. Like that is just up the middle. I want to be as sure-handed as possible, and they just weren't.
I guess it's like outcomes, whatever, but decision making process, it's another example of like, why did we do something so different than what we did in the significant majority of the season? um like new bar and center, how much have we seen that?
Yeah.
uh so yeah, I didn't put too much thought into it. It kind of felt like maybe an attempt to play the hot hand, even though it's a single at bat. But if maybe it was the start of a hot postseason for Yepez, and you look like a genius if Yepez does something well in that game, but he didn't. So,
Yeah,
um,
and he, to his credit, I guess, he got a hit, which was good. And
yeah,
then to his detriment, he overthrew second base and allowed
Yeah.
what's Marsh to take it, or no, I'm getting my guys mixed up. No, sorry, yeah, he threw to third base, and that turned that what could have been a single for Marsh into a double because he basically
Right.
just sailed the throw. Which we all know, Yepez has a plus arm. I understand why he'd want to do that. He's a young guy, but does Newton make that mistake? Does Carlson make that mistake? Probably not.
Yeah.
All that to be said, you got to score a run to win. They
Yeah.
didn't, so it did.
It
You
doesn't.
can pick all that apart, but it just seeing when the team is built around defense and fundamentals and all that crap, like seeing those decisions made, it's frustrating. Why do we go that way?
Yeah. Yep. I mean, anytime you get eliminated from the playoffs, it just leads to a lot of questions and a lot of second guesses and a lot of Monday morning, quarterbacking. And I think there are some legitimate questions to ask of Marmol, but there's been, I think, an overreaction as well to this,
Oh
and I'd
yeah,
say that I still think Marmol is one of the, if not the best manager that we've seen, at least since LaRussa, and even then, like LaRussa was a particular brand of management that I think we're okay with not having
yeah.
anymore. So I'm a big supporter of Marmol. We have to remember he is new still, even if he's doesn't really seem that way. So it just what sticks out to me is up until the ninth inning, uh, like everything. Game one of the ninth inning, everything was like, wow, Marmol's playing chess and they're playing
Yeah.
checkers. Like he's a brilliant manager. And then, half an hour later, fire Marmol.
Yeah.
It's like, or maybe you know both sides of those reactions were overreacting. So
Well, yeah, so I think the fire Marmol is silly, and the I think there was an article that I saw going around Twitter called "Paul Goldschmidt is a fraud."
yeah, that's
And
it's so
now
stupid.
obviously that's just clickbaity bullshit, but my
Yeah.
goodness, how like what kind of baseball watcher are you?
Why watch it if that's how you like
Or
the
or
yeah.
like you need to have the idea of probability explained to you on like a level, like a fifth grader's level. Like, do you not like? So
Yeah.
obviously, I don't want to, you be a fan however you want to be a fan, but I do think that those people need to be called a clown, just ever so slightly. And it's also like, okay, you go to Buck Showalter, who, Max Scherzer got blew up this weekend. Should Buck be fired for starting one of the best pitchers of a generation and leaning on it? Like, when does it,
Yes.
like, what do you, like, you bet your money on certain guys. Like, you bet your money on Paul Goldschmidt. You bet your money on Nolan Arenado. Yeah, and if it doesn't work out, that's a bad beat, and it's too bad for you, but that's the way baseball go, like we've said eight
Yeah.
times this episode.
I think every playoff series should be a minimum 5 games, if not 7. And in fact, I think we should go back to the old days and every playoff series should be 9 games. And that's the only way that I think you would really feel okay leaving a series having been beaten and just be like, we got beat. Because
Yeah.
anytime it's like these 2 or these 3-game series or even sometimes 5-game series, there's always going to be something fluky that you can point to and say like, oh, well, it's bullshit, or oh, this one decision led to the whole fall, the whole downfall. And it's like, no, it's not usually how it actually works. So it's really easy to make those decisions in hindsight. But in the moment, yeah, uh, give me Paul Goldschmidt batting in that spot all day, every day. It just,
Yeah.
didn't work. So
Yeah, and I could complain about the formatting for another hour, but yeah, we
yeah,
we agree there.
I think we should move on. It is a disappointing end to a magical season. We say goodbye to Pujols and Molina, though. Obviously, they're gonna, be like I think they will forever be a part of the Cardinals. Just whatever's going on with Pujols'
Yeah.
10-year contract thing, whatever. He will
Oh my
be.
god, yeah.
I know. I don't. It'll all work out. I'm certain. So I'm not worried. I'm not ready to fret about that.
No.
But overall, a magical season. So I think we've been talking about this now for like 40 minutes. So I think
Yeah.
we got to move on.
Yeah, let's move on.
And before we do, of course, we want to remind everyone that the show is supported on Patreon, patreon.com/talkingaboutbirds. Check it out. we've been doing we have basically completed our first season of the reboot of this show. So Ben, congratulations. And thank you to the
What?
listeners. We got through a season
Oh, well,
without
congratulations to you too.
without
Okay, I
killing
see.
it, without killing
Ah,
each other.
I see.
Um,
Okay.
it was touchy there, and it continues to be. But
You were saved by about 1,000 miles. That is what is keeping
yeah,
you alive, is
it
our
actually
distance.
it
Yeah.
helps. It helps. And although if you're gonna mail me a ribeye, that might be my undoing. So yeah, if you want to support the show, we do this every week, and we are happy to do it. But we also really appreciate the support that we have received. Shout out to the patrons and everyone who has been with us all year. Or just joined us wherever you are. We truly appreciate you listening and being a part of our little community. Patreon.com/talking about birds. Everybody who signs up gets access to the Bird Squad, our private Discord. We've been really chatting it up. Even though the season is done for the Cardinals, the conversation hasn't stopped. So get in there, hang out. We'd love to have you. And then also take a few minutes to go leave us a nice review on the iTunes or wherever you listen. On the iTunes, he said, like a 90-year-old
God,
man.
yeah.
It's not even that anymore. iTunes is dead. On your podcast app of your preference.
There you go.
And Ben, where else can people find us online?
Yeah, I think I just want to reiterate what Nate said. We really appreciate it. It's been so much fun. I think this is the most fun I've had with the Cardinals in baseball in a long time. I think coming out of the Demi and all that stuff, this has just been great in our the little community. So yeah, thank you for that. And if you're baseball freaks like us, we'll be around for the off season to continue talking about and pontificating and arguing for signings and all that good stuff. So stick around. You can make sure to follow us on Twitter at Talk About Birds. You can follow us on Instagram at Talking About Birds. And of course, you can email us directly, questions, thoughts, musings, to talkaboutbirds@gmail.com. How do you think Nate likes his steak done? You should ask him that. Email him. Is he a mid-rare guy? Honestly, just looking at him, I like mid-rare. I like it to be a little bit bloody, but he's well done for sure. He's disgusting.
Oh,
Well done in ketchup.
you have never said, I am like shaking right now. I'm closer to rare than mid rare, if anything, but I'm taking that sous vide, baby, and I'm not calling you baby. I'm calling, the universe baby
Seem
here.
like you're calling me baby.
I'm taking my sous vide. I'm getting it perfect, getting that nice crust. Don't get me started on this. You've now I have to kill you, I think.
Does anyone
Now
like Nate is just food motivated? He's like a cat or a dog or something. Like you just all I got to do is say one thing and look at this. He just
I'm
goes
I'm
off.
fired up. This is the angriest I've ever been.
I think you just woke up for this episode. All right, Nate's locked in now. I just got to poke the bear a little bit.
All right. All right. Well, now I'm mad, but we'll go on. We'll
Okay.
finish this episode and then we'll see what happens after that. So, I went back and listened to an early episode, one of our first few, where
Yeah.
we tried to uh, basically predict, like, if the Cardinal season goes well, like what about it will go well, and if the Cardinal season is a total failure, like what pieces of it will be a total failure. And it was pretty funny to listen to. It was pre Pujols signing,
Oh
like
wow.
spring training had basically just started, so we were going completely blind on this discussion. So the way we did it is I shared basically like my prediction on why the Cardinal season will go well, and then you shared like why the Cardinal season will go bad, and then we sort of had a discussion more generally about it. So I thought it would be funny and a little fun to share some of our essentially predictions
Yeah.
in this episode. And we did also do a more specific prediction thing, which we'll go back and cover later. But I just wanted to talk at this like higher level of what we are like more generic predictions for the season.
Yeah.
So some of the things we said where if this season goes well, these things will happen right out of the gates. My very first one. The rotation stays healthy, and Jack is a top 3 Cy Young
Oh,
candidate.
no.
These
Womp,
are all
womp.
based off of our predictions saying this is what must happen for the Cardinal season to go well. You would think that we won like 40 games this year.
Right.
So, next, Dakota Hudson is awesome, which made me laugh.
Yeah.
Uh, Carlson steps up and is one of the best outfielders in baseball.
Yeah.
Bader is consistent and hits 25 home runs.
Who?
Harrison Bader. You know,
You stomped
that
on my
guy.
bit. Yeah. All right.
Tyler O'Neill hits 40 home runs and steals 20 bases. Goldy and Arenado are great, so we got that
Hey.
one.
Yeah.
Gorman, Donovan, and Yepez are a great supporting cast. I think we got that one.
I
I
think that
feel
that's mostly true. Most like Donovan
yeah,
is really his back is
really
sore.
he
Yeah, but
carried that. Yeah.
yeah.
Um Yeah. So I think at this time we thought that the rule changes were going to happen for 2022 and not
Yeah.
2023. So we said that Yachty is going to be fired up because they've made the base paths smaller because of the larger bases. And
Yeah.
he's going to be personally offended at that. And he's going to be fired up and have a fantastic season.
That's a
So
very specific, interesting, wrong take.
yeah, we were wrong both on the rule change and also that Yachty was gonna have a great season.
Yeah.
Uh, Gallegos is the bullpen ace, and Reyes and Hicks are good.
Oh man.
So none of we obviously did not see Helsley coming. I think Gallegos, we said he'd be an ace. I don't know if I give him that much credit, but like he was good. And then Hicks was pretty good. This was before Hicks had even been announced
Yeah.
as the starter, like experiment. So though obviously Reyes it was a non-factor this year,
Right.
so swing and a miss on that one. And then we tied this all together by predicting that the Cardinals will win 117 baseball games. So we were a little short, but that was
Wow.
if all of these things came true.
Sure.
And what we actually said is that we really only need half of these to happen for the Cardinals to have a good season.
Right.
And I don't know that we necessarily hit half of them, but we did get a fair amount of these in the ballpark of being correct. But that first run of things we said was pretty bad.
Well, I mean, the pitching was the story, right? Like with the
Yeah.
offense, we talked about it all year. The offense was hitting, the offense was clicking. We just couldn't get the pitching going until the trade deadline.
Yeah. And so as we discussed later, one of our big like wrap ups was that essentially that is that the pitching depth will determine the outcome of this season. And because that was also 2020 or in 2019
Mhm.
really was like pitching depth was a constant problem, right? So we correctly predicted that this team will win or lose based off of the starting pitching. And it's ultimately really was the case. And because the team was collapsing until Quintana and Montgomery came in and everything came back together and it was a good team. So our predictions for like what will happen if this is a bad team was number one, Yachty loses it, which I think you could argue happened,
I think it did. I hate to
Yeah.
say that out loud, but I think
Yeah.
it did kind of happen.
Well, he
I mean,
had a
he wasn't
great
here for 2
September.
months. Yeah.
Yeah. And he had a great September. So it's
Right.
like basically he had a horrible first half, was gone, and then had a good like 3 weeks,
Right.
So I think it's fair to say he that happened. He essentially lost it. Here you said this one. Paul Goldschmidt is an old man. Hall of Fame track is over. So again, this is our prediction of why the Cardinal season might be bad. So
Yes.
that did not happen, and it was good.
Oh man, I'm so glad I was wrong on that one.
Yeah, here's a good one. Tommy Edman hits 280, steals bases, isn't good, and is essentially the MVP of the team. And you got like some of that right because
I would have been right if Goldy and Arenado didn't do what they
yeah,
did. That's a
exactly.
massive if, but I actually
Yeah.
was weirdly close to being right. That's
He's
pretty funny.
I yeah, I mean he put up near just as much F4 as they did. He
Yeah.
should be in the MVP conversation. He won't be because
No.
that like player
His style of
profile.
accumulation. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly. This one, you said Arenado gives up, plays poorly, and opts out. So at least we know the first part of that is not the case. We're all holding our breath on the second part. Um,
Yeah,
Paul
he might
DeYoung
opt out for the other reason.
Yeah, Paul DeYoung is a shortstop all season and hits 190. So that didn't happen, although it was pretty close.
Yeah,
Um,
we weren't
Carlson gets
stuck with that.
demoted. The pitching is horrible. O'Neill is bad, and the Cardinals win 55 games.
I mean, Carlson pitching, O'Neill. That all
Yeah,
happened.
it all happened. So ultimately, we made two big sort of statements. One, that this team will be decided by its pitching, and that the middle infield might be a major problem.
Yeah,
And I think with the emergence of Donovan and to some degree like Gorman coming in to play second base, like we did not run into that problem with the middle infield being terrible. Wasn't necessarily the best, but it was not like Paul DeYoung starting all season. So
yeah, and I think like not to be forgotten, but Edmonds' proven ability to play shortstop, huge part of that as well. Like we
yeah,
didn't really think of that as much of an option, or at least I didn't when I was you know kind of spouting off on that nonsense.
yeah. Well, yeah, that was when Edmund really was having like the breakout part of the year this season when he became the starting shortstop and he was
Yeah,
all over the field. He was hitting well. Like that was when he did kind of look like an MVP level player, and it normalized as it usually does. But yeah, that was pretty eye opening, and
yeah.
I think there's a legitimate chance that the season starts next year with Edmund as the starting shortstop. So
Trey Turner,
uh,
Nate. Trey Turner.
I'm all in on that. We've got we're gonna do a whole. We've already talked enough in this episode, but and we need content for the off season, so we'll do an off season episode soon where we talk about like the needs and what we want the Cardinals to do. But yeah, I mean, I would love it if the Cardinals would sign maybe the best free agent that's available this offseason in Trey Turner. So a little
What an
spoiler
idea.
on, yeah, wouldn't that be fun? Personally, I love it when they go out and get like, the best player in the league.
Again, and I know we'll talk about this later, but he is just such a special, fun kind of player to watch too. He's so
Yeah,
fast and so smooth and a good defender and can hit
yeah,
the ball
big
over the
fan,
wall. And yeah, okay.
big fan. All right, so that I just thought that'd be kind of fun to look back at some of our,
Yeah.
that was in like early March.
I mean,
So
really, if you chop the good and the bad, and you can like we predicted it right you can mix it and match it together, and we're
I think we
actually pretty
nailed
right.
it. Yeah. I think we nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were going for like bold, this is what
Right.
these things will have to happen. And so I think, obviously we were trying to project what it would look like for this team to be either awesome or bad. And ultimately 93 wins is good, but also not like elite. And so we have a fair chunk of from both sides of these predictions. Um
No
we
doubt. No
were
doubt.
Hell yeah. We were originally going to what was
I
what
don't
was
know.
that?
Trying to be cool.
Yeah. So we were originally gonna sort of talk about the current state of the playoffs, but we're running pretty long here, and I'll just say real quick, at least we're not the Mets. They won
Hey.
100 games and they got eliminated too. So I did a playoff bracket and I was wrong on all four wild card series, so that's fun. But instead, we're going to wrap up this episode and go into a game. So thought I'd try to do something, stupid and fun for this
Shocking.
episode after I'm always, regardless of my intent, it's always stupid, but I
Yeah.
intentionally went for something stupid this time. So um doing a new game here that is inspired by another game that we've done and something that we've talked about from time to time in our show, which is that if you go far back enough in baseball, and really sometimes you don't even have to go that far back to find some really, really awesome nicknames in baseball.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, some really funny names, some really silly names. So we're playing a brand new game that I'm calling Nickname or Nate Name. What I
If you guys could just see the way that his face contorts when he says these things, it makes me want to just hang up.
So here's the game.
Yeah.
That's a good title.
I'm not even disagreeing that it's your face.
Here's the game. I'm gonna say a name, and you have
Mm-hmm.
to tell me, is that a real baseball player or
Yeah.
is that a name that I made up?
All right. So Catfish Hunter or Sharky Stevenson. And I
Damn
gotta
it!
go. Catfish is
Damn
a
it!
real guy.
Damn it! I have to delete Sharky Stevenson. Yeah, so it's just like one name, and you tell me, was it
Sure.
a real? And also, these are all pulled from Baseball Reference,
Yeah.
and Baseball Reference does expand beyond like when you get far back enough. These are professional baseball players. They
Yeah.
may not have all been MLB, if that makes sense. There was so many different leagues and whatnot. So these are
Okay.
just
This sounds like it's gonna be real easy, but I got this.
all right.
Also, if you want to call me Sharky Stevenson for the rest of the episode, I'm fine with that.
All right, Sharky, here we go.
I take a bite
Uh,
out of the ball.
all right. Well, speaking of balls, here's the first one. What a transition. Cannonball Titcomb.
Wow. Such a good name that it has to be real. I don't think you're that good. So I'm gonna say that's what am I supposed to say? Ball player or
Uh,
nickname?
Nickname. Yeah.
Okay. And then
Nick.
if I think you made it, I say Nate name.
You say Nate name.
Okay. Nick, I'm going
Yeah.
to go nickname.
All right. You got it. One on the board. Cannonball Titcomb, real baseball player.
Was he what was his position? Is he a pitcher and he had a great arm?
You know what? I thought about like bringing in all
Look at that one
the
question and he
stat.
completely falls apart, ladies and gentlemen. Wow, pathetic.
uh, Cannonball Titcomb was a uh,
Yeah, you don't have it. It's fine, Nate. You're unprepared. We can move on.
no, but I will find it for him, but no one
It
else.
has. If it's not a pitcher, then it makes me like the nickname even more.
He was a pitcher, and he
Okay,
debuted in 1886 for the Philadelphia Quakers.
didn't know that was a team. All right,
It was in the National League.
all right.
All right. Let's see. What have I got next? Pickles Dillhofer.
Oh, that's good. Dillhofer. Have last names just like shrunk over time? Like where where are the Dillhofers out? Pickles Dillhofer. Okay, so obviously that is not a baseball nickname that would be gained through a attribute on the field, right? Because well, I guess there is an aspect in baseball called pickles, but you wouldn't like it's not like a good thing to be in pickles, so I don't think that would earn you a nickname. And I guess you could be an expert at getting people out when they're in a pickle, although pickles don't really
Mm.
happen that much, so it'd be hard to earn a nickname that way. But his last name is Dillhofer. I'm really thinking this one out. Oh man, if you made this one up, then credit to you. I'm going to say that is a nickname.
You got it again. That is a
All
real
right.
name. Pickles Dillhofer.
Pickles Dillhofer. I like that. No Sharky Stevenson, though.
All right. All right, Sharky. You're on a roll.
Yeah.
Calamity Sampson.
Calamity Sampson. That is good, but I'm trying to think if you would go for an alliteration name or if you just like the word calamity. My spidey senses are tingling. I mean my sharky senses are tingling. um I'm gonna say that's a Nate name.
All right, you are on fire.
All
Yes,
right.
that is a nit. That Calamity Sampson though. That's a good name.
It's
Like
pretty
it sounds
good.
like a yeah. All
Calamity is not
right.
a word that you really hear much anymore. That maybe we should bring calamity back.
I was thinking Calamity Jane,
Yeah.
Um, all right. Tricky Dick Nix.
Tricky Dick Nicks. That's so stupid. Tricky Dick. I mean, now I'm feeling like I might have a gap in my history knowledge. Like I kind of think as Richard Nixon as being the Tricky Dick. Is there more than one Tricky Dick? Tricky Dick. I don't think that there is. It's old Dick Nixon. I'm gonna say Nate name.
All right, that was a history test, and you passed. Yes,
All
that
right.
was just basically a Richard Nixon
Okay.
joke.
I was like, there can't be more than one.
All right. This player's name was simply Beer.
One name.
One name.
One name.
Beer.
Now, this might just because I want it to be real. I don't know if I have any other good reason behind that. Also, I'm not sure that you would just say this guy's name is Beer as a good old make 'em up. So I'm gonna say nickname.
All right, you are. Maybe I'm not as clever as I thought I am, but yeah, this is a real player. I did do a little bit of research on this guy, as little bit as I could. He played in the 1910 Ohio State League, which was a professional baseball league. And what stood out to me is some really good names in this league. So. Um, he played on the Portsmouth Cobblers, which is whatever, but there's the Lima Cigar Makers, or Lima Cigar Makers was one
Yeah,
of the teams.
pretty
And
good.
then Chillicothe Infants.
Not even
the
baby. It's infant.
Infants.
Wow.
The Infants. Oh,
Huh.
what a funny name for a
What?
professional sports team.
Yeah, was that owned by like a diaper manufacturer or something like that? Like what is the obviously that's not a name that's striking fear in your enemies. What
Yeah, oh
is
no, here come the infants.
I hope they get their nap at their appropriate time.
Yeah, oh, did
What?
someone forget their bottle? All right, Sharky, your
Also, babies are stupid and weak.
babies are stupid and weak.
Got them.
Um, all right,
Dun.
Sharky, how about Periwinkle Van Winkle?
Oh no, that is an A+ name right there. Periwinkle Van Winkle. It is excellent. Is it too on the nose? What does periwinkle mean? I have so many questions. I'm going to say you got a bit of a shit-eating grin on your face. I'm gonna go
Because it's a
with
great name.
it is a great name. I'm gonna go with Nate name.
Damn it! Yes, it is. Periwinkle Van Winkle is my favorite one of the ones.
That's really good.
All right. Caramel
Sharkies
Carl
after it.
Dixon.
Caramel Carl. That I know. There's no way. That's a date name.
All right. That was another test. So
Yeah.
Ben has a little brother, and him and I are in a gang together, and his name is Caramel Carl, and I'm Kettle
Yeah.
Cow, and we're the Sweet Corn Boys. So I wanted to see how much you knew the
Yeah.
life of your brother.
You don't need to add your weird bit lore into this podcast.
It's the Sweet Corn Extended Universe. All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. All right. I just got a few more for you.
Okay.
Oil Can Boyd.
Oil Can Boyd. I actually think I am familiar with that person. I don't know exactly why, but I think he has something famous about him. I'm going to go nickname. That's a real guy.
That is a real guy. I
Yeah.
also recognize the name. He's like the wacky name thing, is
Yeah.
pretty like we're not the first to like, laugh about wacky names. And he shows up all the time. It's like, well, look at this wacky name,
Right.
But you don't hear enough people talking about beer, which is what his baseball reference page says. It's just
what terrible
beer.
SEO. Like, how do you Google a guy named Beer? Did he think about that?
He should have thought about that in the 1910 Ohio State League. All right. Pretzel Pizzulo.
Oh, these Italians are crazy. Pretzel Pizzulo. Wow. If he was real, I hope he was a Yankee. But I think this is me peeling back the onion that is Nate. I think Nate had a good pretzel with cheese at the game and thought, oh, I like pretzels. So I think that's where it came from. And it is a funny name. So I'm going to say it's a Nate name.
Ben, you were on quite a streak. You made it 7 in a row.
Yeah.
But on the last one,
really?
this was a real player, Pretzel
Wow.
Pizzulo.
I am shocked by that.
So you got 7 of 8 correct. To run down them again, Periwinkle Van Winkle, Nate name. Carmel Carl Dixon, Nate name. Calamity Sampson, Nate name. Tricky Dick Nixon. Not even a Nate name, just a different guy's name. Oil Can Boyd, nickname. Cannonball Titcomb, nickname. Pickles, Dillhofer, nickname. Pretzel Pizzulo, nickname. And Beer, nickname.
Wow. I need to point out, so really quick, I just had to search baseball reference for pretzel, and I found a German baseball player whose name was Pretzels Geitzen, and he played from 1884 to 1892, and seemed to be a pretty effective pitcher. But there are multiple professional baseball players named Pretzel. This is why I love baseball.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, that'll do it. Hopefully, in these dark times, this game and this episode brought you some laughs. So thank you again to all of our listeners. We will continue to do this show. We'll track the playoffs a little bit more once it gets a little bit deeper and we have less like bullshit to talk about. And we're coming up with ideas for the off season that we can keep bringing y'all this hot content. Check out the Patreon, check out the Twitter, check us out. Don't look too closely.
Yeah, you're not gonna like that.
And I guess I normally end this with go Cards. So I'll say we're still gonna say good go Cards because it's eternal, right? So until next week, go Cards.
Let's go Mariners.
Hey, what do you think he means when he says hotter than a set of twin babies?
Wait, no, it's hotter than a set of twin babies in a Mercedes with the windows up. So I think I assume it's adult women. I hope it's fucking adult women, although he is disgusting.
Why would you call it? I guess just to rhyme with Mercedes. Or does he mean hotter than 2 kids left in a car with the windows up and like on a hot day?
Honestly, he might because he's the worst.
Yeah.
It says hotter than a set of twin babies in a Mercedes Benz with the windows up when the temp goes up to the mid 80s. So yes, it is a joke about leaving your kids in a hot car.
Yeah. Okay.
Wow, never thought about that one.
I'm just like
that's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, the line hotter than a set of twin babies has always stood out to me, but I've never like took the 30 seconds to look at the next you know. Okay. All right.
Wow.
Well, yeah.